Warchant game day, and away we go. Man, a late night tilt. Great to be with you. Thanks for being here with us. I'm Jeff. That is Tom. Florida State heading out west. First matchup against Stanford in program history. By the way, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. That kickoff ties the latest scheduled start for FSU, matching games at San Diego State, by the way, in 1973. In 1977, Tom. I was 2 for one of them living in Europe. I was 6 for the other, and I don't remember it. This one is a late one, and it's the first for Florida State to take on Stanford, and it's a game that a lot of people feel an awful lot of interest in, and it's not just because Florida State is playing football, and we all care about that. It's because we've got a gut check moment on our hands here. We got a temperature, do you care to be here? Where's your head at? Sort of football game on the line right now. Mike Norvell's tenure at Florida State and whether or not it continues. I think that's as straightforward as we can get to start a show previewing a football game. We didn't think we'd be here. I summon you the moment in time a few weeks back in which we all reveled in victory over Alabama and the belief that things were going to be different this year. But alas, the ACC schedule got underway, and Florida State has failed to win a single ACC game this year. There's 3 up, 3 down, all losses. This is a game in which you are heavily favored, number up to 18 at the time that we do this broadcast. 18 points you're favored by, and for good reason. Stanford has shown no signs that they are a team that should or could compete with you if you're not compromised mentally. Physically, Florida State's better than Stanford. So we shall see. Big moment in time for Mike Norvell. Big moment for the rest of the season. Florida State's got to find a way to put an end to the losing streak. Florida State's got to find a way to get a win and then maybe cobble the pieces slowly but surely back together and infuse some confidence, some life back into a program that, again, just a few weeks ago was riding high and feeling good about what this season could be.
There's no two ways about it. This week, one of our members on the channel, Tony, put in the chat during the Jeff Cameron Show, wildly popular as it is weekdays at 1 o'clock on Warchant TV 93.3. He said, Mike Norvell last won an ACC game when he was 42 years old. He's now 44. And I thought, interesting, because his birthday was this past Saturday. Nobody celebrated it. And I looked back at last year's win over Cal. When did it occur? Yeah, it occurred early enough in the season that the head coach went through his age 43 year without winning an ACC game at Florida State. That's as fireable as it gets, but here we are. He's got a massive buyout. They did make sweeping changes in the offseason. If you were just airdropped into this situation from the preseason and you saw nothing about how we got to 3-3, you would say, well, hey, we were looking for 7, 8, or 9 wins. Looks like Florida State's on track. But the manner in which these games have occurred indicates an arrow that's not pointing upward, and you're hoping to see some signs of that this evening against Stanford. It's a late kick. It's an interesting travel. It's the first time in 50 years, apparently, nearly 50 years that Florida State's had to do this. We'll see how the players handle it, but it's more than just jet lag that we're looking for tonight on that field. It's investment, and there's a lot of bangs and bruises, but it shouldn't matter against a team like Stanford. If you care to be there, you're going to win this football game tonight, but will you care to be there? Or is this like what Penn State did when they ran out of the tunnel in the Rose Bowl just a couple of weeks ago, which is a message to everybody who's watching that they don't care to play for the head man anymore. Hate that we have to do that, but here's where we are, and there's no sugarcoating that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know. We don't cover Penn State on a weekly basis, but the game in which this happened and it all unraveled, and there's a lot of coaching conversation this week, centered around this game and many others. There's one down in Gainesville that they're looking at closely as well. And we're talking about the coaching marketplace and monies and buyouts and who do you get and all that stuff. But there were no indicators that Franklin was in trouble. This was a situation in which they played Oregon close. They had that game maybe in their grasp. They lost a tight one in overtime. It's a tough loss, but Oregon, the top 5 team, you kind of like, all right, well, it happens. It happens to Franklin too frequently, but it happens. So there were no indicators at that moment that they were then going to fall to pieces. They go on the road against UCLA, who was winless at that time, and they give up a gazillion points. They've got a ton of NFL talent on that defense. There's no way that should happen. They lose that game. eyebrows are raised, concerns mounting, and then you lose to Northwestern, who's just simply awful, and they pull the trigger just like that. And I would argue that they did it because of what you just said. It was a clear indicator. It's one thing to lose to Oregon in overtime. It's a whole nother thing to get beat by a winless UCLA team and then turn around as also a 20-plus point favorite yet again and lose to Northwestern. At that point, your players are telling you, I don't like this guy. I don't care about this guy. I don't believe in this guy enough that we're just going to go through the motions and lose to people that we're 20-plus point favorites to beat. If Florida State is to lose their 4th straight ACC game this year, their 9th straight ACC game dating back to last year, there is no argument other than money that can be had as to why you would keep Mike Norvell. It's just simply as that. I mean, imagine, just say it out loud, everybody. Just say it out loud. If they lose tonight against Stanford, it is their 9th straight ACC loss. Their 9th straight.
You could even argue, I think, effectively that it's not about money. It can't. If it is about money, you would fire him before the game starts. You know what I mean? Like, because this is where the math is done. And unfortunately, instead of us talking about what Stanford brings to the table in terms of condensed sets and how slow their secondary is and how we really need to see how the second wave of wide receivers are developing within this offense, and maybe they can establish a little bit more depth on the offensive line tonight. We're not talking about any of that. We're always back here, it seems, in the last few years, discussing existential questions. From 2 years ago with the snub, it was, is the ACC really a second-class citizen? I suppose they are. The committee just told you that. Great. How do we get out of here? Last year it was, we can't win a damn football game. Do we need to fire him right on the heels of going undefeated in a regular season and winning an ACC championship? And this year it's, boy, he built some equity back up with that 60 minutes to start the season, but winning conference games matters. And if he's not going to win a conference game, we're going to have to move on. I enjoy the pregame shows where we discuss the matchups, the X's, the O's, and what will define a win and a loss. But tonight's about hearts and minds. And we're all going to be thinking about the larger picture as we're watching a 2nd and 6. You'll get lost in it for a few plays, but it's going to be hard not to do what are the implications of this drive thing, unless Florida State goes out there and shows you why Stanford's a little bit more Kent State than Virginia in terms of talent. If they do that, I suppose you can just sit back and watch for a few hours and enjoy. But short of that, we have to think about the big picture at all times, and that's terribly annoying, sir.
I can completely agree. I'm just listening to you talk there and trying to take that in and think about where we take this next. You're right. It's so frustrating because ordinarily we would be breaking down where Florida State has an opportunity to exploit Stanford's weakness, where Florida State's strengths line up against Stanford, where Florida State's weaknesses, can they be exposed by Stanford? Is there an element of what Stanford does that could give Florida State a problem tonight? And really, it feels empty to do that right now. I mean, I think if you were going to make the case for Stanford, you'd say that they're going to keep the ball on the ground. And Florida State has at times this year really struggled to stop the run. Now, when they commit more bodies to it, they can do it. You could get into all of that, but it doesn't feel right to do that. It feels like you're ignoring the elephant in the room when you're doing that, when you're talking about the X's and O's of this particular game as a huge favorite against a bad football team. And, it's all too frequent that you're having that kind of a conversation, to your point. I think if you tune into this show because you're a diehard Nole, you love Florida State, you're well aware of the circumstances of which we speak, but you do want to know about the game, I can give you some of those numbers and we'll do that. I will tell you that what I want to see is a team that plays extremely hard tonight. What I want to see is a team that is still believing in themselves and maybe, I guess, consequently, or you would say that they believe in Mike Norvell still too. That would be good. I mean, it beats the alternative. I'd like to see them believing in the staff, believing in one another, and going out and playing a good football game. I mean, we could put things to bed temporarily with a really nice performance, and you get back in the win column. In theory, Florida State could go out there tonight and win, 49-10, and you realize Florida State is infinitely superior to Stanford, and they played like it. and they executed the game plan on both sides of the ball. They dominated time of possession. They dominated field position. They were the more physical team. They were able to execute. They took it as a business trip. They performed well. They performed to their capability. We saw some young players emerge and look like kids that might deserve some more playing time moving forward. Some of the veteran players take on that leadership role that you need. And this thing goes swimmingly, because in that moment, you would then say, okay, all right, well, I still don't feel great about the state of the program. I'm still worried about where this is all headed, but at least they took care of business and got an ACC win, ended the losing streak. Let's see how they perform coming out of the bye. Are they a little bit healthier? They bring in Wake Forest. You win a home game. You stop your home losing streak in the ACC. And now you've put to bed some of the chatter that is consistent on an hourly basis. And then the next big referendum comes against Clemson, and whether or not you can go win a football game there. But I would like this game to be a stepping stone for that game to matter, for that game to be a bigger game than it currently is. Because as of right now, it doesn't feel like a big game. As of right now, the games themselves feel a little bit like an afterthought. I'd like the games to matter again.
So you are a hearts player, right? Don't you like to play hearts?
I did. I used to play a lot of hearts, yeah.
Shooting the moon. That's what we need here. You need nothing short of shooting the moon for Mike Norvell to have a fighting chance to succeed here at Florida State. And it could be going 9-3 and winning out. It could be 8-4, but you look really good in all of those games, and you could tell the guys rally around him. You need a moment like Florida had last year, which I know doesn't inspire people because this coach is going to get fired anyway, but where you see that everybody rallies around the guy that's on the sideline. Honestly, you haven't even seen that much this year, where they rally around Mike and you can tell that they want to carry him off the field or they want to run through fire for him. I never got that sense even in the Alabama game. I just got the sense that they were primed and ready and physical. And that was so compelling to watch. And you felt like, okay, this is the new standard of what we're going to see week to week. What you want to see from this instance of where Florida State is kind of the way you would approach when an interim coach takes over for a fired coach and that team rallies around the new guy and they make a decision very difficult for the athletic department. Well, God, do we keep Clay Helton here?
Yeah.
What do we do? Like, they love this guy. Wouldn't you love to see that from this roster tonight? To go to war for Mike, and every time they make a play to run over to him, give him a hug, give him a high five, end somebody's dreams by blowing up over the middle of the field and then running and giving Mike a hug. Like, you need stuff like that to happen week after week after week to get you to a place, I think, as a Florida State fan, where you say, well, all right, they love him. I don't feel that way right now about the way that they play, the way that are they playing because they love him? You're going to need that plus blowouts plus probably some recruiting wins along the way to repair what feels like something that's too far gone and too far broken. But it could start tonight, and if you do take care of business and they are locked in, then you can begin to have that conversation until it's not a conversation anymore. But I feel like he's got to shoot the moon, buddy. I think that's where we are right now. You have to have everything go your way.
Well, let's look at who he's going to be armed with as he goes to play this game tonight. And there is the injury report. We have to look at this every week. The initial injury report that came out had Cam Davis out again, Gavin Blackwell, Jabril Rawls, DeMonte Diggs, Quindarius Jones, Chase Lofton, Ethan Pritchard, obviously, Josh Raymond, and Tariq Mowry. Questionable, and I'll be looking at this very closely because these are some big names and guys that you'd really like to see play tonight. Deuce Robinson being chief amongst them, Edwin Joseph, Roydell Williams, Javon Boggs, Caleb Lavalley, and Micah Pettis. Tom, I think it would be good news, obviously, if they could get Micah and Javon and Joseph and Robinson. Of the guys that are questionable, those are the main list. I don't care if Roydell Williams plays or not. But, you need the other guys that I just mentioned. I think those are pretty important players.
I will tell you, it was unexpected, and it gutted me to see Thursday night that Rawls is not going to play. I thought he was your best player on defense. He was the one that was doing the things that you are begging from the other 10. Darryl played fine, I think, and Darryl's been fine this season. He hasn't been a superstar, but he's been paid a lot of attention to. I think he's done his job. But if you're talking about somebody who made a difference last week, you couldn't find very many options against Pitt. I thought Jabril Rawls brought what it took, and it guts me because I think he practiced this week for the most part. I don't know if something came up very late in the week. That was not an expected addition to the list at even a questionable level, let alone an out level. I don't like seeing that. I don't know if there's subtext there, but you have to wonder in a week like this. This is me personally speculating. There's no knowledge here. I hate that because he's one of the guys that brings it the way that they should bring it. So now that means that you could have, I suppose, Arnaud getting more snaps in this game. I don't know. Will they turn to Lester? Who will they turn to on the depth chart at corner? Because you're already down your primary reserve in Quindarius Jones, who was lost for the season. So that becomes an interesting thing on the defensive side. And then I totally echo what you're saying. This is a pass defense that's awful. The more targets that you can have that are active for this game, the better for Florida State.
Yeah, well, and I also this is something that does involve gameplay. I know that a lot of you kind of looked at me side-eyed when I'd say earlier in the year, sure hope they develop a second receiver. I don't see a second receiver. Deuce is the guy. Can we find a second receiver? And, look, we did. We ended up finding a outstanding prospect. I mean, what you have right now is so fun because you realize that you've got a burner that has a chance to be special, but Micah is not a well-rounded receiver just yet. He still runs wrong routes. He still isn't sure-handed. He has to double catch way too many easy throws, and double catching drives me nuts anyhow. It also drives receivers coach nuts. He'll make the spectacular play. He'll wow you with the speed. But I don't like having to rely on a guy who hasn't played a lot of football at that position to be your number two, and in some cases your number one when your one goes down. That doesn't seem right to me. You need some other guys that have been within the program that have had a good understanding of this offense and who are a more natural receiver to be that too. And we haven't seen it.
I will tell you that I actually think this receiving core is pretty good, but the offense doesn't allow you to see it. I think Squirrel's we know Squirrel's a good player if he's healthy. He's just never healthy. I think LaWayne McCoy is a solid 3 at receiver, and Dan's your specialist and Deuce is your 1. Florida State has been far thinner at this position in recent years than they are now at wide receiver.
Yeah.
But the offense is the offense. I think there's a lot of open things out there, but this is what happens when you bring in Tommy Castellanos is you're going to welcome a situation where you're going to get a prayer like the throw to Landon Thomas before halftime last week that's ill-advised on every level. That's not going and making a play.
It's dumb.
Yes, that is the equivalent of the interception in the second half against Miami. Kind of stupid. But you get away with it because you got a player who can go up and fetch it, and he did. Great play by Landon Thomas. And unfortunately, you're going to have some open things that you miss. And they've got good receivers. This would be the game to show that. And it's also something that it's worth talking about. Gus said it in his Sunday press conference last week that Tommy tweaked whatever lower body injury he had, I'm assuming it's an ankle, on the first play against Pitt. Well, he ain't going to move. Then he better be able to make these throws down the field because those throws down the field are going to be wide open tonight against Stanford.
Well, that's the bigger conversation that we need to have, and we're going to have it in just a minute. But before we do, today's pregame show is brought to you by Hotel Indigo Tallahassee, College Town. Whether you're a frequent guest, a business hosting your event, or stopping by the restaurant, bar, and rooftop before an FSU home game, Hotel Indigo Tallahassee wants to thank you for your continued support, being part of the family. If you want to host your next event with the best view of Doak Campbell Stadium and all of Tallahassee, just call Jay Green at 850-755-9011. Hotel Indigo Tallahassee, welcome to our neighborhood. More of Warchant Game Day in just a moment.
Hey, this is Jay Green from Hotel Indigo Tallahassee. Can I stop and say thank you? Thank you for telling your guests to stay with us. Thank you for hosting your corporate meetings and social events in our rooftop meeting space. Thank you for hanging out with us on FSU football game days. Believe it or not, this sales guy isn't selling anything. I just want to say thank you. But if you've never seen our rooftop and I can ever help, give us a call, 850-755-9011. We are Hotel Indigo Tallahassee. Welcome to our neighborhood.
Welcome back, Warchant Game Day. We mentioned it a moment ago, and I think it's an interesting topic to touch on right now regarding Florida State's offense and the quarterback position. Obviously, Tommy hasn't played well lately, and part of it is that he's banged up. And, what's most special about Tommy is his ability to create with his legs, to make plays when things break down, to scramble out of problems. When guys come free, he's able to make people miss. He's very gifted in that way. I'm critical of Tommy as a passer, but I'm certainly not critical of the guy when healthy as a runner and as somebody who times those runs pretty well and can make guys miss and do some pretty special things. But that is truly what makes him tick. That's what makes him go in this offense. It's the reason that you brought him in. You married yourself to this offense, and you better have a quarterback, because this offense is at its best when that quarterback can really go, can really run, and can really make defenses pay, and is a real threat to pull and take it on those reads. And you're just not seeing that from Tommy. He's not a willing runner right now. When he does run, he gets down very, very quickly. And, he's not a good enough passer to really kind of put up with that, frankly. Is a bad way of describing that, perhaps, or poor way of describing that, I suppose. But I would, if you don't think that Sperry would fall to pieces under the lights of a real game, I know he'll run, and he likes to run, and he's a really good runner, like really good. Not Tommy Castellanos good, but like really good. He's shifty as all get out, and he's a good thrower of the football on the run. This isn't a complex offense, so it's not one of those things where you say, well, I don't know if he knows the offense. I think he probably knows the offense. It's not hard to learn. So if you think emotionally he can handle it, if Tommy early in this game tonight is showing signs that he's not anywhere close to where he needs to be, and he's just going to be largely a pocket passer, I don't know, Tom. I would think maybe you need to look at letting the other guy get some reps.
This is where the problem of having to coach for your god dog job gets in the way of that decision. Because I think
there for a minute.
No. I think if you're not having to worry about that particular thing, then you might even think about starting Sperry or Brock Glenn in this situation, because the matchup calls for downfield shots. And if you have Deuce Robinson available to you, if you have Squirrel and Boggs is back, and you combine that with Danzy and McCoy, and let's say Pittman plays, God forbid, it's the anti-Pitt game where you have everybody that you thought you would have in the pass game, you're going to have shots down the field that are open. And all you need to be is adequate in the running game, in the quarterback run game, in order to set up those shots. So this would be a situation where I think it's a no-brainer. You signal to the world that, hey, we got to buy on the other side of this. We really need Tommy down the stretch. We're going to do our best to get him to 100%. And so tonight we're going with so-and-so. Pick whichever one you want. I would pick Sperry too, but pick whichever one you want. But since you have to coach for your job, I think you're more apt to feel forced to put Tommy in there, because Tommy can deliver the big time throw. He can do that. He's shown that.
Yes.
But it's the consistency thing, and it's also the snap and diagnose the field thing. He did it really well against Alabama. He's just not a consistent passer. It's in there. You can have a drive in which you go, holy cow. Tommy just hit a back shoulder to Deuce. Tommy just hit one over the top. He scanned half the field. He came back to the other side and made the throw. And then the next drive, it looks like he has never done that in his life before. That's the problem here. If this wasn't an existential crisis, I think you probably give Sperry a look. And frankly, I would start the backup in that situation, because when you play Clemson in 3 weeks' time, if you can help that ankle or that lower leg by sitting him, and you have a bye week and Wake right after it, I think you got to do it. It's in the best interest of the war, not just the battle in front of you. But I fully expect that we're going to see Tommy tonight.
Well, no, I think we'll definitely see Tommy tonight. He was listed as probable, but so is Randy Pittman. That's a big deal. And obviously we're hoping to see him out there. I think he's a really big deal to this offense. Look, I don't know the extent of Tommy's injury, and we do know Gus admitted that he had one, and we can see with our own eyes that Tommy was reluctant to run. So if it is a situation in which he just needs rest, if you give him, 10 days, 12 days of not being on that ankle, and all will be right with the world, yeah, I would too, Tom. I would have no trepidation about it, because I think Sperry, this is a guess based on what I saw in a scrimmage and what they have said coming out of practices, what Gus has talked about many times with Sperry, the way his eyes open wide and he lights up when he talks about him in a way that he doesn't with Brock Glenn. Anyhow, if it's true that he's those things, and he is a gamer. And remember, he played in Texas, man. High school football is so serious in Texas. Every game is just as big as this game probably, tonight. He's probably felt that many times before. I don't know. I want to see what he is. I want to see for a lot of reasons. I want to, A, rest my starting quarterback so that we get the best version of him when we go on the road against Clemson, because you're going to need it. And B, I want to know, do I have a guy that I can play for in the future, and we can let Tommy take it on down the road to whatever he's going to pursue when his football days are over. So, that's what I want to do. I want to know what he is.
If you're playing in a power game, this is the best against power competition. This is the best possible circumstance you can be in, save for having the Stanford game in Doe Campbell. If you're talking about to give a true freshman or a backup quarterback who can get the ball down the field an advantageous position, an advantageous matchup, this is as good as it gets. This is closer to, I said it earlier, this is closer to Kent State than it is Pitt. This defense actually is worse than Virginia's. And Virginia's defense was awful, and we talked about that all week, and it was true then, and it's true now. This defense is worse than Virginia's by a sight. So, if you want to give it a shot, this would be the week to do it. I wonder if Tommy comes out and looks flummoxed and or inconsistent, if they would think about it. If Mike's job wasn't potentially on the line, I think they would probably make that decision a lot quicker. We'll see what they do, though. It's fascinating.
Big picture numbers for all of you at home with Stanford when Tom talks about this defense. I do like their middle linebacker. He plays with a great motor, but the numbers are the numbers, and they haven't been awful against the run. They have been awful against the pass. Against the run, teams don't run a lot against them. I brought this up earlier in the week on the wildly popular Jeff Cameron show, but just so you know, on the season, total plays, they have faced 241 pass plays. Teams recognize you can throw on Stanford. They've faced only 157 run plays. So we're getting to a place now where they're going to be separate by more than 100 of teams choosing to pass as opposed to run. And the numbers bear out exactly why that is. Because against the run, the numbers are adequate. They are 53rd EPA per play, total EPA 59th. Their success rate isn't great, but it's 80th. It's not in the hundreds. Those are okay numbers. You'll win a few ACC games with those numbers. Against the pass, we can go all the way through this. Success rate 110th. EPA per game 114th. EPA per play 101st. Total EPA 112th. Plays per game in which they face a pass, they're 132nd. There aren't very few teams exist in football that see teams pass against them more than Stanford does. Those kids got to be damn tired of seeing a passing play because it's seemingly all the plays.
Well, and these poor kids are left in isolation too. It's one-on-one matchups, and it looks like they are in quicksand. And I'm just talking about going against normal, athletically gifted ACC players. I'm not talking about the best wide receiver core in the country. These guys look like they're in slow motion. And that's what happens when you're at Stanford often enough. And that's why Andrew Luck is trying to revamp that football program from the ground up. But on a night like tonight, Tommy could summon the ability necessary to have an excellent game passing. It's within his portfolio and his history that he could complete 65% of his passes, 70% of his passes, and throw for a ton of yards per attempt. But it's just, that's not something that you can count on when the game kicks off. It could happen, but it could look really clunky too.
Let me give you some more numbers while we're on the subject of who the team is that we're playing tonight. When you add all of that up and you combine the rush and the pass on defense against Stanford, and you say, what are they total as a defense? They're 98th in the country in total EPA, 101st in EPA per play, 101st in EPA per game. They're 107th in success rate in the country. So this team is not good defensively. Offensively, we flip it here. When they run the ball, similar thing. They're not terrible running the ball. They're 57th in total EPA. Their success rate isn't great when they run the ball. It's in the hundreds, so it's not great. When they have a chance to stick with it, though, they're 60th in EPA per game in running the ball. So the efficiency numbers aren't dreadful there. They don't often get to stick with it, though, and so they come out of it, and then we start throwing the ball. When they start throwing the ball, it gets ugly, Tom. 122nd, 116, 122, 117th in success rate, respectively. Those numbers are all along the lines of the other numbers I was citing. They're awful.
So this is a pretty easy one here from the Florida State defense's perspective. Stanford is going to line up with a ton of condensed sets, 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends. It's spread out wide. So a lot of times you might see that and it's jumboed up and it looks like you're trying to consolidate to one side or the other. They'll go super wide in that condensed formation, and then they're putting your linebackers and safeties in conflict if they're going to pass it in terms of which tight end is going to release into the route. Do you have the proper leverage, stuff like that? And that's where Florida State's going to get tested today. But also, this is an opportunity begging for you to just bring more pressures. Just bring the house. And if they hit a couple shots over the top, worst case scenario, you give the ball back to your offense against one of the worst defenses in the nation. Certainly probably the worst pass defense in power football today. So it's not the end of the world if you give up some big plays. This is not the week to keep everything in front of you. And I don't think Tony White wants to do that anyway now that he knows his guys are too hesitant because they're so afraid to make a mistake. You got to take that out of them. You got to take that out of the equation by getting them to go downhill and calling for more pressures. In this specific instance, that means it's more run blitzes. There will be some weeks where that's going to be blitzes where you're trying to get after the passer.
Yep.
But this is also a team that if they're in 3rd and 3, they've got 2 plays to get the first down. They know what the drill is tonight. They know what they need to do tonight. So it doesn't matter if it's on their own 32. It doesn't matter if it's in plus territory. If they're in 3rd and 4, they're probably calling their 3rd down play with an eye towards 4th and 1, and they won't be afraid to go for it, which also takes more time off the clock.
Get an opportunity right now to talk about some red zone action here. We love to do so. Are you ready for the retirement red zone? We'll find out here in a second. Tom, if you would, cue it up, good sir.
Here we go.
Welcome to the majesty.
Every freaking rep.
The elegance.
To win the game. Oh, he hits the upright. It's no good.
You have entered.
Someone burned down the funeral home. You burnt the funeral home.
Lives will be changed.
Sideline. Touchdown. Unbelievable.
Mothers will cry.
When you see your players give all that they have and you lose that way, it's tough.
Legacies are etched into eternity.
I know who I am.
North, South Dakota was his brother from West Virginia.
This is the Red Zone.
That's good to know.
So before we start, a reminder that Adam Tolliver and his friends and our friends at Artisan Financial Strategies trying to get you into a good mindset, good place for your retirement. You want to protect your family against rising healthcare costs. The Artisan team brings a combined 30-plus years of planning experience, world-class resources. He's a fellow Nole. He's really good at what he does. That company, Artisan Financial, is serving many Noles as we speak, Artisan Financial Strategies. So reach out to Adam, reach out to Artisan Financial Strategies, and get in your retirement red zone and make sure that that planning experience and that expertise is working for you. First down, Tom.
First down, over under 257.5 passing yards for Florida State tonight. Under. Okay. All right. Not feeling great about this situation then. Second down. Do you see a second quarterback on the field tonight? Not a Wildcat quarterback. You can't cop out if Randy Pittman plays and we're in the red zone.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Third down. The facet of the defense that you are most looking forward to watching is what?
The defensive line has a chance to kind of, I think, assert themselves against an offensive line that struggled some for them, especially in the passing game. So I think they can get after the quarterback here in a way that they don't typically do. You don't really see Florida State's defensive line providing a lot of pressure. They end up having to dial up pressures because they don't have a dominant figure there. It might change a little bit here. You may see this quarterback come under pressure because of the physicality up front.
Fourth down, the dynamic away from the play on the field that you are looking to see and you're hoping the cameras cut to that gives you a little bit of a window is what?
Playing for each other. I think the rallying to each other after big plays on both sides of the ball. A great indicator to me that a team is invested, locked in. This game is the only game that matters. What happened previous, what's going to happen in the future doesn't matter, is when, early in a game, 3rd and 4, need to get a stop. Guy reads the play well, gets out in the flat, tackles him on the swing, comes up 2 yards short. They're going to kick the ball away. Great play, great tackle, and there's 7 other Florida State defenders there to congratulate the player on a job well done. Offensively, really needed to convert 3rd and 6, catch a ball in traffic, and you're not necessarily getting up and pointing first down by yourself 10 yards away from the play, but rather you've got guys coming up, slapping your helmet, getting back in the huddle, ready to play the next play, locked in together. We're coming together at a time we have to come together, and it's about us because outside is a very noisy place. It's going to continue to be. That's not the media's fault. That's nobody's fault but the team that's lost 3 straight games and the head coach that allowed it to happen. But as players, you can't think that way. As players, if you're locked in, you got to be thinking about win the next play, win the next down, and keep doing that, and it'll all add up to a successful game, and we'll get a win. We'll get out of here and let the chips fall where they may the following week and the week after and the week after that.
That's fair. I do want to see every time. I'll be very curious every time they cut to the sidelines and they show the coaches. Just their facial expressions. They could not be mad about the bigger picture. It might be that they hate that somebody was misaligned before a snap. So you don't want to read too much into that.
Right.
But I think you can also get a sense. Certainly we knew that something more than the score was afoot when Florida State's losing 7-0 to Boston College in Game 2 last season, and you see Mike Norvell look like he's about to vomit on the sidelines because something is terribly amiss. So I'm policing for that as we do the watch along later tonight in the channel. I do want to see how Tony looks. Are there interactions between Tony and Mike? Are there interactions between Gus and Mike? Everybody calm, everybody professional. What are we looking like? That's the thing that I'll be a sucker for. Again, I know that's not always the most representative thing in the world, but when they cut to that thing between plays, I almost will perk up more than I will when the ball is snapped. I'm like, okay, what's going on over there? Everybody all right?
Well, this is part of the problem that is inherent to a situation in which your coach is on a hot seat. We see this every week. We see this every year in college and pro football. When a coach is rumored to be in trouble, we start looking at body language. These people are human beings. They're going to reveal to you, just as you do to your coworkers when you're stressed out, how you're feeling, what you're thinking. What are your concerns? Like, you can see it wash over people. And, I hate that that's part of the larger discussion week in and week out. I hate that we're once again back in that zone. Speaking of the red zone, Artisan Financial Strategies, I hate that game to game, we're having to do a lot of body language watching. This is the old Irish NFL with the binoculars, checking the sidelines and looking at people's body language. We're all in body language watch right now. We're all in facial expression watch right now. We're all in comfort zone, non-comfort zone watch right now.
If this thing ends with Mike Norvell being replaced, we're going to go back to one of Ira's reports from a previous road game. I wonder if he's going to get down on the field before this game. That guys were chirping at Virginia players, and it seemed totally out of place, and it seemed unnecessary. It wasn't like there was good-spirited banter back and forth. There was that type of almost small attitude, that false bravado thing that's happening before the game. And apparently a little bit of that happened before Pitt, too.
It did, and Narduzzi called it out, and Narduzzi's an old-school guy, quite literally is, and a tough guy. He is a tough guy, and I got to tell you, I thought that was the dumbest thing when I heard that after the game, that you really did that to that guy? That guy coaches and gets more out of far less every week than most coaches in the country. Narduzzi's a good coach, period. And he's not going to accept that. He's not going to have that. I'm sure once that happened, if he needed to light a fire, he had the ammunition. You're not good enough. Florida State's not good enough to do that. You're not good enough on the offensive line. You're not good enough on the defensive line to be talking smack to an opponent. You haven't earned that. And that's unfortunate. You're right. We'll be watching closely.
That also is evidence of a disconnect with reality. And that disconnect can be put to bed Tuesday through Friday in practice. That's also part of the discussion here. If you're not coaching it, you're allowing it. I'm sure you're well aware of what happened with Virginia because some veterans had to pull younger players away who were chirping. You wouldn't think to maybe address that after you lose the second straight game to Miami, that maybe pregame warmups, you might want to take a look at that. That's another thing to watch too, is after the plays. Are we doing that thing where we're playing poorly, but there's a good, and maybe the scoreboard doesn't reflect it.
Yeah.
Then you make a play or it's overthrown for a receiver and you're a defensive back pounding your chest. And yeah, man, we all know what that is. Are we doing that tomorrow? I hope not.
Well, that happened, Tom. That Ira brought it up. That like you talk about the disconnect. You intercept a pass in a game in which you're trailing. You're not playing well. You're in trouble. You're on the ropes at home, and it's a 20-minute look at me fest.
Yeah. And you did the put to sleep when you're down to Miami in the second half. We scored a touchdown. You got a touchdown celebration of this, like, buddy. That is not a good sign of health of culture. We need to do better.
Yeah, there's not a good sign of awareness. It is. I have to catch myself constantly because what it is also a sign of social media and surface level nonsense, TikTok and the like. But it's part and parcel to the modern player. I'll say that. That's for sure. Our thanks to Artisan Financial Strategies for the Red Zone segment. Always, we love our partnership with them. We'll come back and wrap up Warchant Game Day in just a moment. Introducing Harry's Plus. Oh, I've told you about Harry's razors before. Here's a little bit of the shaving cream they sent me. Thank you. Sent due to Beeper. Also, Harry's got the travel pack razor. I got the Harry's in the back bathroom. I got the Harry's for my kids. What are we talking about? Well, they're high school kids. One of them's a senior. He needed a good razor. Harry spent 10 years developing their most advanced razor yet, an entire decade of R&D for the smoothest possible shave. And I can attest to that because I shave every morning with Harry's. And you won't find a better blade. And I've tried all of them. Refined blade technology. I could tell you about that. I could talk to you about the quality, the barbershop quality shave. Feels like almost like a straight razor. It's unbelievable. And their razors still cost less than Gillette Fusion, which is crazy. So you get this premium shave without this exorbitant price. Risk-free trial right now. If you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right. No questions asked. Here's what you do, guys. For a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/warchant. Get you a Harry's razor. The set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shaving gel. Got that too. Yeah. And travel cover to protect your blades when you go on the road. Just head to harrys.com/warchant to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support this show, the Jeff Cameron Show. Support Warchant. Tell them that we sent you. That's right, harrys.com/warchant. Wrapping it up on Warchant Game Day, Florida State Stanford. Not long now. All right. First ever matchup against Stanford. Do we go 1-0? Do we get the win over Stanford and have bragging rights for years to come? Oh, man. I hate that the game is not about the game, but it is a game, and they are going to play it, and we do need them to win it. And hopefully next week we're talking about heading into the bye, easy breezy with a win, and perhaps some guys getting healthy, and maybe, just maybe, we silence some of, not all of, no way that happens, some of the chatter surrounding whether or not you need to make a change right here, right now, whether or not you make a change before next year, whether or not we're riding out the string. I just want to get back to talking about the football.
This is like when you're a kid, either in a classroom with your teacher or your parent is around, and you know that they could choose to yell at you right now, and you're just bracing for it, and they don't, and they decide to change the subject. And you're like, whew, okay. That's what this win would do for Mike. It would be that moment of, well, okay, they either ignored it and let it pass, or they didn't see it, but I'm dead to rights here, man. A win over Stanford would allow for that moment to pass just for a minute, and then it becomes, well, don't screw up against Wake. It's not about go get him, guys. It's about, well, don't screw it up at this point. And those are two very different energies. I know that you've studied coaching philosophies over the years. That's a Jimmy Johnson thing. Right now, we are in total don't screw it up territory rather than, hey, let's go light them up. Very different place to be, but this is the hand we are dealt, and we'll watch it into Sunday morning.
Never, ever, 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 ever in any competitive endeavor do you want to be of the don't do variety. You always want to be in the do-do. Hey now, variety. You do always want to be the doing. You want to be the one that is dictating terms, for lack of a better term. You want to be executing a plan, for lack of a better term. You want to be the aggressor at all times. You do not want to play a game in which competition is at play and there is a winner and a loser and you're going in with your hands up. Unless you're boxing, when you might get hit, you do have to have your hands up. Other than that, you want to be a very aggressive, forward-thinking, execute the game plan, on to the next kind of guy or gal. And I hate that we constantly have to talk about this team as in, are you? Will you? Can I trust you? What's happening here? Oh, no. Are you playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win? Do you not believe? And that's why you're playing that way. It is loathsome. Let's see how they play tonight. I would think that you would be emboldened this week if you're a player despite 3 straight losses, because you watch this film and you know you have a chance to light it up and put up some numbers. You got a chance to be on the winning side. Nobody hates losing, and nobody hates losing more than players themselves who sacrifice every day at practice. You want to be rewarded for that. You got a chance to put good film out there and get a win. Let's hope they're aggressive in that way.
I fully expect defensively them to cut it loose, and I don't think Tony White is going to allow them to sit back and be conservative. And I'm excited to see that because there is something to this group if they just go straight ahead. You saw what it was against Alabama. It doesn't mean that they're always going to be that successful, but it's a hell of a lot more watchable than what we've seen the last couple of weeks. So I fully expect that. My concern lies with the disjointed nature of the offense. If there is more of a health problem that persists to kickoff, we have the information that we have. You'll get the 8:30 update, and then you'll get the game, the field side update. If they're banged up at receiver again, a lot of these guys aren't active. Oh, buddy. Okay. Then you better be able to run the ball. They're going to sell out against the run. That's where I'm more concerned. I think defensively they're going to be north and south. And for better or worse, they're going to be north and south.
That'll do it for Warchant Game Day. Our thanks again to our friends at Hotel Indigo for sponsoring. We always appreciate it. And our thanks to all of you for watching. We appreciate it very, very well. Enjoy the game. Hopefully the Noles get the big win. Come on back home. We'll be back with you on a Monday to talk about it. Obviously, all the coverage, this game, everything that we do at Warchant, everything we do on the Jeff Cameron Show, Wake Up Warchant, all that stuff, it's all going to be there. For Tom Lang, I'm Jeff Cameron. Thanks so much. Go Noles. Until next time. Peace.